All right, Allie B. So I'm going to start right here today, okay?
Okay.
With a story that is, where is this story? Oh, yeah. This is a Connecticut story. This is the Homeland Security was at a strip joint in Connecticut this week. Homeland Security and all sorts of cars, the Connecticut State Police. It was a huge thing. So at the end of the day, state police notified Tolland of suspected prostitution, sexual activity at Electric Blue.
Why does prostitution fall under Homeland Security? Can I just ask?
Human trafficking across state lines or something? Who knows? Let me see if it says it.
It just seems like, wasn't there already a way to deal with prostitution? I mean, doesn't the whole Homeland Security Department only date from 9/11?
Correct.
So was there no way to handle prostitution until...
We need the feds there, Alice. The feds need to be everywhere.
I don't understand what prostitution has to do with 9/11, though. I'm trying to understand why we needed a whole department
Alice,
be added to deal with prostitution, and there was no way to handle it until 9/11 happened. There was just nothing that we could do.
Student loan debt for rich co-eds who are going to UCLA to be Instagram bikini models. We're giving them college tuition repayment. Because of 9/11 too, somehow. Co-eds who weren't even alive during 9/11.
They're first responders to the COVID emergency because
because they're on Instagram.
Because they at some point went to college in life. I'm already, and I know that you already know this, but I'm in such a cranky mood today.
Yes, I know
and
this.
So, if it's going to be that the federal government is going to be the target of my ire today, then fine.
You're going to be interacting with the feds as of tomorrow, my little friend. I'd be careful what you say.
I know. I'm going to be interacting specifically with...
Exactly. Some feds, we'll just say. State Police and Department of Homeland Security descended on Electric Blue Cafe in Tolland Thursday. It's a cafe, Alice. I wonder how the fare is. The town manager's office was notified Thursday morning by the Tolland resident state trooper that state police and federal law enforcement agencies were searching the property at 60 Merrow Road. State police say they were assisting the Department of Homeland Security with the investigation. Several state police cruisers in the Eastern District Major Crime Squad mobile vehicle were seen at the club's parking lot. They better bring the mobile vehicle out there, so that means the huge pop-out.
I'm surprised they didn't have tanks.
They got to show people why they needed the $700,000 for the mobile response unit, right? According to the notice of the town, the state police and the Tolland resident state trooper have been conducting an ongoing criminal investigation related.
Did they tear gas them too?
Related to the strip club. The resident trooper notified the town that investigators believe that prostitution and sexual activity have occurred on the premises for several years. The copy says from NBC Connecticut. Up until present time, according to the official notice of the town manager's office. In another case in 2021, a strip club was ordered to remove photos of a group of women used in their advertisements without their consent. Town officials say they couldn't. Oh, my goodness, you busted them on that. Town officials say they couldn't comment further on specifics. Well, so here's my thing about this, Alice. Not only should the feds not be there, and the NSA shouldn't be listening in incoming and outgoing phone calls from Electric Blue Cafe in Tolland, Connecticut, but I believe that strip joints are someplace horny men hang out with cash. So it makes sense that there's prostitution there. Because prostitutes like cash, and they need horny men in order to make it...
I would say and this is not to impugn any strippers who choose not to be prostitutes, but all these things fall under what the left likes to call sex work, and I would say there's probably some overlap between the group of people that does stripping and the group of people that accepts money for other sexual acts.
That is
Possibly.
A fair assessment.
Possibly. I mean, and not all strippers, right? But I think that there is probably some...
Oh, you need your salt lights on. So do I.
Oh. There's probably...
No, there is, because you're entering the world, and there are darker fringes of that world, obviously. Obviously.
Right. And
actually,
different people have different
And although
limits.
I'm not a prostitute guy and I've never hired a prostitute, that's unbelievable that even in my worst blackout in my 20s, I never took the services of a prostitute. I probably just never had any money, too, and was probably afraid. But morally,
right?
I don't care. I know friends, who use websites where there's escorts, whatever. I don't get. I'm not morally offended by it. I wouldn't like.
I mean, I am kind of.
I know you are, but the camera's right in your line of sight. But in other words, I can't see Alice's.
Well, but that's the idea. That's what I try and have because then when I'm looking at you, I'm looking at the camera.
Smart. Expect more condescending talk from Alice today. But here's the other deal, Alice. Not only should there not be federal agencies, in other words, like I said, the NSA, like getting exciting, the room like tingling with noise because they're listening in on the Electric Blue Cafe. No Fed should be involved. No state police should be involved. As a matter of fact, nobody should be involved. Why isn't prostitution just legal? People are going to turn tricks. You don't know this, Alice, but it's one of the oldest
professions.
Did you know that? It is.
Heard that,
yeah, I coined that. But people are going to be having sex. Who cares? There's a point to be made that, I mean, but escorts are allowed to do the escort thing because they're simply going on dates and it's not really sex, but they're getting $800 or whatever it is to have sex. Why are we? So we're gonna arrest.
And girls on OnlyFans are having sex for money, and people who make regular porn are having sex for money, and everybody else is. I mean,
and to be quite honest, Alice,
to be fair, I don't like any of that.
Some percentage of women on dates are having sex for money.
I mean, true. Clearly there's not like a capability for us to like completely regulate that. I agree that we don't need like special assault vehicles swooping in to like put a stop to it, but I also think that it's like really bad and that people shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, but
I think that very, very often the people who are doing it like not because I think there's a really big difference between millennials who are like empowered by being sex workers who have an OnlyFans page where they like take photos in a Princess Leia outfit and like the people that are doing prostitution on the street, like in terms of their situation that they're in their lives, in terms of how much they'd really like to be doing that. Like, I don't think most people like doing things in the bathroom at truck stops are doing it because they're like making a freely empowered choice about like the career they want to pursue in life.
Well, then there's certainly truth to that. And that's going to happen really with any occupation, but that's going to happen. And you, for instance, when I was with the Herald, we had some great reporting about prostitutes, including women who only got into prostitution because of drug habits, and they needed to get a fix, and it was,
or they owe somebody money now because of drug habits, and they're doing it
exactly.
Yeah,
and I think there's a vile thing that can happen. That said, like the Mustang Ranch, or the idealized Mustang Ranch outside of Vegas, where ugly fat dudes can go for a marginally attractive woman to be romantic with them, I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. If that's what these women want to do with their lives, I don't know. Like, I haven't spoken to a prostitute. I assume.
I think there's a fantasy that people have that that's what's going on. Like, I think that the men who frequent prostitutes would like to believe that this is a person who's like choosing to do this with her life and she's all empowered. Like if you watch the show Firefly, right? Like the prostitute on that, she's like a high class escort. She sleeps with people. She chooses her clients. She's super attractive. She's choosing to do it. She's all like empowered and feminist and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And like, she's not having to do anything she doesn't want to do. That's not the reality of what prostitution is for a lot of people.
Yes.
And, the left will say, well, that's because it's been forced into the shadows and the black market because it's illegal, right? Like with drugs, but it like with the drug thing, I also think that like it's just bad. So, I don't think that fantasy version of what like Joss Whedon and people who like to frequent prostitutes think, but
it's not all fantasy. I think
people want to believe that that's the reality.
No, I think that women are uniquely suited just because they're women to be extorted for use of their bodies. And I think it's not fair and it's not right, and it makes like every woman a kind of target in a sense. But you hear about lawyers with attractive clients who have killed their kids or whatever, who say in lieu of payment, da-da-da.
Lawyers with attractive clients who have killed their kids?
Yes. So for instance...
What does that mean?
Who's the girl I have a crush on from Florida?
Casey Anthony?
Yes. So for instance, the rumor is that she paid for legal representation, in part at least. Hello?
I get what you're saying, but that's weird. I just didn't understand lawyers with attractive clients who've killed their kids. I don't think that's an incredibly common situation in the prostitution
world. What I'm
world.
saying to you is...
I think it's much more likely that it's drug addicts and people who are...
Ellis, I understand. I know it's more likely to be drug addicts, okay?
Okay.
But what I'm saying to you is, as a matter of course, women are more likely to be extorted for sexual favors.
Okay.
That is a thing.
Right.
Okay? So, I don't think it's necessarily... Obviously, it's easier if you've got somebody...
But isn't that bad?
Yes, it is bad. But I'm just saying that I think that you can have...
Like, I just think a lot of men who want to go see prostitutes would rather believe that this person wants to be doing this than to believe that, like, it's a person who just is, like, deeply in debt from doing drugs and would rather not be doing it at all with them. Is being forced to do it because they have gotten themselves into trouble.
Okay, but...
because it doesn't feel as good to think like this person's only with me because their drug habit got out of control and now they owe a violent loan shark money.
I think that there are people, and like I said, when I worked at the Marriott, we had this girl who used to drive up in a Jeep and stay in the front and be upstairs with businessmen from Asia for 30 minutes, and she was sweet and fun and nice and very beautiful, and she'd run upstairs and she'd come right back down 30 minutes later. We'd give her her keys back, and she was always nice, and she was paying for college. That was the deal with her. She seemed like she had a situation going, and she had clientele very interested in American blonde women. So
okay, that's great. That's just not the typical.
Well, no, I understand. If you go to like Dot Ave or Mass in Cass, whatever, in Boston, and at night, these are the dregs. These are people barely hanging on and barely alive who are doing whatever they can to get a fix or to.
But it's like comparing. To me, it's like comparing to say like, oh, I know all kinds of successful businessmen who like do cocaine and like, might do weed on the weekends or whatever, and they're fine and they're successful and their life is together. But there's also crackheads. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and to compare the two experiences and say like, drugs aren't that bad. It's just because they've been pushed into the criminal underworld, right? Like,
why shouldn't a woman be allowed to have autonomy over her body and full agency over it? Why is it that if somebody takes her to the Capitol Grill for drinks and food and theater tickets and all this stuff and spends $800 on her, that then them organically having sex because she's been enriched by his wallet? Why is that just fine and accepted? But if somebody else if a woman wants to make a choice to turn a few tricks a day and make $1,000, most of it in cash, to make a couple $100,000 a year, why can't she do that?
I'm just wondering how you then protect the people who are desperate people or addicts or mentally ill people who are being exploited.
Yeah, but those people are going to be exploited regardless of any laws. They're always going to be exploited. People who are addicts who have...
They don't have to be. This is a choice we're making as a society to just let people live this way.
But exploiting people for sex trafficking is not legal.
Well, sure, but like we are allowing it to go on by not... I mean, like we could do more about it than we do. Like, for one thing, we could just not have addicts all living on the streets.
Yeah. I agree with you there.
Like, we're not doing people any favors.
But I just think it's...
Like, we had this discussion about the homelessness crisis the other day because I was showing you statistics where basically, like, post the deinstitutionalization under LBJ, like, homelessness and everything didn't increase, but, like, our jail population massively increased. And then, like, now we've stopped jailing people. So now, like, the people that are on the streets right now in, like, San Francisco or wherever were either, 50 or 70 years ago in an institution or, 30 years ago in a jail. And they're not anymore, So, I think that we make choices about having criminals wandering the street that, like, make things like this harder. And other countries, like, if you look at places like the Netherlands where prostitution is totally decriminalized and legal and everything, like, you don't have the same level of criminality on the streets that you do here.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it's not because of that. It's because there's, like, a totally different social and cultural stuff happening, in those countries.
No, I get it. But what about it just as a libertarian, Alice?
Well, I'm not a libertarian.
Okay. As somebody who's some libertarian-minded on some issues.
Okay.
Why should you, I don't mean literally you, but why should you, who is not a lawbreaker, etc., why should you be barred by having full agency over your body and profiting from it because somewhere out there somebody's got an opioid addiction is also going to do this?
Well, I think it's bad for people regardless. Like, I also don't do cocaine.
Well, I understand,
even though,
but
like,
if you
a lot of
wanted
wealthy
to,
people do.
Why not? Why does Homeland Security get to decide whose hands are allowed on you?
I don't think they necessarily should, but I don't think the Department of Homeland Security should, but I think that since the beginning of this country, people have this conception, I don't know, you, like, run into it in certain libertarianish crowds, that, like, at the founding of this country and in the Constitution, like, there was all kinds of, like, prostitution and crime that was, like, totally allowed. But, like, we're talking time when, there was total local control of that stuff. Like, prostitution wasn't allowed. There was total, like, mixing of church and state. There was absolutely complete, there were all kinds of morality laws on the books. And that was considered totally constitutional and not, like, an infringement of people's rights, because the idea is that people also have a right to live in a society where there's not, like, crime and addiction and brokenness everywhere, and that, like, you have to empower some level of society to do something about that, whether that's putting institutions out there, whether that's having jails, like, making certain things illegal, because otherwise you get San Francisco with, like, tent cities and people going to the bathroom in the middle of the street. And, like, who are you and I to tell those people they can't take a dump in the middle of the street?
Well, I mean,
do you want to send the Department of
public health considerations?
Do you want to send the Department of Homeland Security after the person who's taking a dump in the middle of the street?
No, I don't, Alice.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can have, like, local ordinances and public health rules around this stuff. Prostitution is also a public health risk. The breakdown of the family is a public health risk.
Well, I mean,
isn't it?
I think men get prostitutes to preserve their marriage, not to destroy it.
Beg to differ.
They generally don't tell their wives, Alice. These are men who are looking for extracurricular or something they're not getting. So, I'm not saying I suggest it to preserve a marriage.
Yeah, that's what you just said.
No, I'm saying that men who are getting prostitutes are getting somebody who's got no identity, who's going to shut up about it, who can keep a secret, who's going to go away. That's why, like Charlie Sheen said, you pay them to leave. That's what it is. So if somebody's getting a prostitute, then I would assume something's already wrong with the marriage.
But don't you think it does, even for people that aren't married, does damage to their like future ability to form normal human bonding between people?
Do I think prostitution damages?
Yeah. Well, so for example, there's a huge amount of research that indicates that multiple partners before marriage is a huge risk factor for divorce. And there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of difference between having like 1 or 2 additional partners before you get married or having 10. You know, that anything except 0 before you're married increases your chances of divorce a lot. So there's obviously something going on there that, you know, changes your ability to bond with people normally.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Should we call somebody?
He's really bugging me right now.
Guys.
The stupid one.
So, would you think... I'll ask you. I go out, I step out on you, Alice, and have an affair.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out about it. Would you prefer that it be like one of your friends who you were in politics with, who's a good friend of yours, which means the friend betrayed you and I betrayed you, or I had a bad night and got an escort at a bachelor party?
That's not what I'm talking about, though.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I think one is less. I think the hooker is less damaging for the relationship.
Okay, fine, but I think it's part of the same phenomenon. It doesn't seem to matter. Like, I think that casual sex with other people damages your ability to form a romantic bond with somebody.
Oh, or it damages the current romantic bond.
Not even current. I think future, and I think that as a young person having sex with other, and that's what data shows.
Oh, I think that's girls, not guys.
No, it's both. It's both. It's 100% both. In the data, the more sex, or not even the more, but having sexual partners before you get married greatly decreases your chance of having a successful marriage. That's just true. That's just true. I mean, like, that's just what the data says.
Guys have sexual partners.
Well, yeah, and the ones that do, some do, some don't. Some guys only sleep with their spouse. Some guys only sleep with one person. They do.
They do?
They do. And they're
not for lack of trying.
They're much more likely to have a successful marriage than ones who don't. And I've heard people talk about this and say that it's because that, like, play the field mindset and, like, the thrill-seeking aspect of it, the desire to, like, have somebody new or whatever, that's a thing that once you, like, turn it on in your brain, you can't switch back. Do you know what I mean? That, like,
I know what you mean, but I don't agree with it.
Well, I mean, that's fine, but then you need to come up with some other plausible explanation for why people who don't sleep with other people before they get married have more successful marriages.
Of people who have only been monogamous with each other.
It's not that tiny a slice. Just because it's not in your cultural experience.
It's not in my cultural experience. Well, it is in a couple of places. It is. No, it's not, actually. It's not. She was... It's all one lopsided. I think that I'm going to say that I believe that if...
I mean, that's just what...
Okay, I don't give what the study says. I don't believe it. I don't believe that is true. Or I believe that it can be easily explained away. I think that women... I think with women who are promiscuous, probably continued... Well, guys too, probably...
Because the thing is, once you get the taste of having different people, you've, like, wired your brain that way to, like, want different people.
I think that's probably true. But that's why the guys can just get escorts after escort and never fall in love with anybody.
Well, sure, but I mean, like, means you're also not in love with your wife then.
I don't think that is true. Look at Tony Soprano.
You think that's like an example of great?
Yeah.
I mean,
he still likes calm, but he just likes many other women too. And he's the boss. And he's a fat guy.
Yeah, and his wife's also trying to sleep with other people. Because she's not satisfied by him, and they have a broken, messed up marriage.
She's almost satisfied. That one guy came into her life, was very good looking. Alice. Dateline.
Well, I was gonna
Okay, go ahead.
Transition to something else here.
So was I.
But I was gonna transition to something related.
Oh, okay.
You
are in a salty mood.
I was going to make a segue to another topic that I feel is related, because the reason we got onto this whole topic is we were talking about if the Department of Homeland Security should be busting down the doors at strip joints in Connecticut. And my feeling is no, but I also feel that strip joints just shouldn't exist, period, as well as prostitution and all the rest of it. Well, that's just how I feel about it. But I mean,
I'm going down the
like I said,
Blue Thunder. What is it?
Like I say, isn't there one caught in like Salisbury called like Tens or something like that?
Kittens. I'm heading down Kittens.
No, isn't there another one like on the beach there? That's something else.
Is there really another one on the beach? Oh, there probably is.
I don't know. Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm going down Electric Blue.
Anyway. My point is there's a lot of stuff that's very unsavory and bad. Like truly actually bad. That also doesn't really need to be federally illegal. And the left, actually, it's interesting. They know this when it's for particular causes that they like, which is why they want to decriminalize, like, shoplifting and other stuff. Like, because you can make that same argument there, right? Like, the argument that they make about some of these things is, like, almost a libertarian one. Not quite, because libertarians respect private property, but lefties don't. But the argument they make about like these Soros prosecutors and stuff not prosecuting crimes is almost like a libertarian one. It's like, really over somebody like taking a candy bar who's hungry from your store, like, is that really worth like arresting them and sending them to prison over? There's kind of this thought that's like, is it, and that's the same thing with like the feds busting down the door at the strip club. Like, yeah, I don't think that's really an effective way to handle the issue, but like the thing itself is also bad.
I think that libertarians would say that there is a place for the state to
protect people from bad stuff.
People in their property.
Right.
Right.
So, and and that's because they believe in property, but the left doesn't, right? And so like there's lots of libertarians and lefties will agree on what's a victimless crime for certain things. Like say Eric Garner selling loose cigarettes.
Yep.
Right? Like that he died because he was avoiding a cigarette tax in New York by selling one-off individual cigarettes to people. Right? And like libertarians and lefties tend to agree on that's a BS reason why somebody's dead and got the cops sent after them for like selling loose cigarettes, because there's really no like victim there except the city of New York's taxes.
Right. Although at the policy level, those same lefties are wanting to recoup lost cigarette tax money by cracking down on somebody selling loose cigarettes on stores.
Right. So the issue really comes down to like what you view as a victimless crime. Right? Because I think a lot of people would agree that if there's not really a victim, if there's nobody really wronged, that the thing shouldn't be illegal. So you have like these things like Eric Garner where a libertarian and a progressive are going to agree that that's a victimless crime. But then you have things like the shoplifting where a progressive will say like, well, how does it really hurt you if the candy bar is gone? Like it's still, and a libertarian will say like, because private property is a real thing, but that's right. The point of disagreement is that they don't really believe in property as a right.
Well, yeah, that's right. But that's where the left abandons the argument on its merits and goes to an emotional reckoning.
Right, but they fundamentally don't believe in
it's
property
leave
as a
Let
right.
them take those things.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I mean, I think everybody has points where like you have sympathy for that argument. When I was working at a department store, there were employees, and I want to say the minimum wage in Massachusetts at that time was probably even like under $8 an hour. And there was one time where they caught an employee on a security camera stealing one of the chocolate bars from that like sit by the register that are just like a pick-me-up item and just eating it. Like stole
who was
it and
scanning
ate it.
that tape for?
Oh, the cameras that they have in there, they can see on the register. They've caught employees for like changing prices for family members and stuff.
Oh my
they
goodness,
can see
really?
everything. Yeah, like if you give your employee discount to somebody you shouldn't have it or something like that. Like they're looking for all kinds of stealing. Like they can see not just like the drawer but the screen and what's on it and like zoom in. Like they show you when you're hired so that you know. But yeah,
Wow.
they caught an employee who took one of the candy bars and ate it at the register, and it's like that's
Going down.
and I talked to the security girl who like had to perp walk her out of the building, and she felt like crap about it because she was like, it's just a scummy, like she said she told her boss, she was like, I'll just pay the $2 for the candy bar, and they were like, no, she stole it, that's it. Like that's yeah. So there is a point where you do have some sympathy for that, like for the total zero tolerance of all crime ever, because we do like choose what crimes to prosecute and stuff. And that's sort of the argument the left's made about these Soros prosecutors is like you always have prosecutorial discretion. You
Yes.
can always choose like which crimes are worth it to go after and which aren't. But the left has made a very conscious decision to use prosecution that way, to benefit favored groups and to go after people for things that they normally would never go after their allies for. And that's really when the justice system becomes useless. And I think you probably see where I'm going with this at this
Going
point.
to Trump?
Yeah, which is that and it's unclear. Trump has walked back that he's going to be arrested on Tuesday. It's not clear if he's actually going to be arrested here or what. But there was this whole brouhaha over the weekend because it's looking like they might actually indict Trump for this campaign finance thing in New York. And the summary...
Speaking of prostitutes.
What?
Speaking of prostitutes.
Yeah. Well, and this is why, like, this brought this up in my mind, too. Because, like, I personally find the actions very unsavory. Basically, like, Trump slept with these women.
Mm-hmm. No problem with that.
And, which I don't like. I do have a problem with it. And, you know, and not for nothing. Like, I was pleased with Trump as a president. I prefer we don't pick him this time, but I'll vote for him if he's the nominee this time, too. Right? Mm-hmm. But with Mike Pence, we don't have this
You don't
problem.
have that.
We don't have this problem. None of this comes up. Or Ron DeSantis, for that matter.
Right.
We're just not going to have this discussion. Not that they couldn't find something else to prosecute them on if they really wanted to, because what is it they say? Everybody commits 3 felonies a day on average. But, you know, this particular one, we wouldn't be talking about if it were President Mike Pence. It's like,
correct. And actually, to his credit, probably President Barack Obama.
Oh, yeah. No, right. I think so, too. Clinton?
You'd be in business for
Kennedy? I mean... Anyway, so basically this summary, if you don't know the whole issue, basically these 2 women came forward very close to the 2016 election, I believe.
Yep.
It's not 2020, it's 2016.
2016, yep.
One is Stormy Daniels and one is her name Karen
McAuliffe
McDougal
or something. McDougal, it is.
Is that right?
It is McDougal, yeah.
They came and they wanted to tell their stories of how Trump slept with them when he was married or whatever. And basically, Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, facilitated them getting big payouts to not do it, partially through the National Enquirer, who bought the story from them and then killed it.
Which was his usual modus operandi.
So... that's not actually illegal. Paying people, because NDAs all the time, like there's all these agreements that people make settlement agreements where they agree not to talk about stuff for money, and NDAs that you sign, like when you leave a job where you agree not to talk about stuff for money. That's like not illegal.
Yes, I think it's not illegal, and I think it's also fair to say, although not everybody has their friend at the National Enquirer there to hoover up all the accusations,
right.
I think it's also fair to say that it's probably, in some circles, pretty much par for the course.
Right. And so that's not actually technically what he's in trouble for, even though I don't like that part. However, what he's in trouble for is the same thing that the Trump Organization CFO guy got in trouble for, which is that the Trump Organization, whether Trump knew this or not, this is what the issue is in this case, had a habit of giving people stuff to do things and them not reporting it as income. And in this particular case, they paid this money to Michael Cohen as legal fees, and then he paid it to Stormy Daniels and this other woman. And so that makes it, they're saying, a campaign contribution by Michael Cohen, an illegal campaign contribution by him to the Trump campaign that was not reported as a campaign contribution.
Right. Which is really...
It's really a kind... Talk about a victimless... Like, what a bizarre technicality to decide to get... And this is a very novel legal theory. Nobody's been convicted for this particular sequence of events ever.
It's also a misdemeanor. So here's the problem with it, among other things, is that nobody ever, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, said Donald Trump needs to go to jail because of category errors in paperwork. They said it was all big stuff, Russian collusion and taking money from this person.
He took an illegal in-kind campaign contribution from a lawyer.
Yeah. He miscategorized how he paid his lawyer. No, it's shady, obviously. That's, he wasn't going to say hooker payment, It's fine. But it's a misdemeanor, and for them to do this thing, obviously, and make it an indictment, which is horse bleep, is not good. There are people in New York City right now, Trump parades going in the middle of Times Square. You can see the banners. They're asking for trouble, and what they're going to do is they're going to turn voters. Because if they go after him for this horse bleep, and then they go after him for Georgia for something that he said, and the Georgia thing is supposed to be more serious. Mm-hmm. And Georgia, because he said we wanted people to find votes, which we all heard the recordings, and I knew exactly what Trump meant. He knew he had the votes. Go get them and make them official. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. And the third one, I think that there might be a fourth one too, but the third one that we're told now is about having secret documents, and suddenly nobody's interested in that one for some reason.
Oh yeah, that one's fallen totally by the wayside.
Having secret nuclear documents, which was the utmost of importance and crucial 4 months ago, that's what you had to. We have to act on this. This is historic. And having Michael Beschloss, do a hit, and Woodward and Bernstein, this is huge. This is your very national security. That was going to sink him. So instead of doing nuclear national security stuff, which we can't do now because Biden's also busted, and you can't send any of the good guys to jail.
Right.
Now we're going to get Trump on misdescribing a payment that Trump Corporation made to his lawyer fixer guy as something it wasn't. That's where we are now. So it becomes very obvious to everybody that, and we've already known this, they just want to get Trump indicted, and
they don't care what it is.
Yes,
and it's actually funny because they kind of admit it. Like when you had on, I forgot what Sunday show it was. Was it Tapper? Who somebody was saying like, well, it's looking like they might, and I know it's not the one we want to be getting him on, but this is a start anyway. Like they admit that this is a nothing charge. They just they've been fantasizing about having the guy in handcuffs now for whatever, since 2015. So for 8 years now, they've had this dream of him being in handcuffs and arrested, and they just can't let go. Finally, we found one thing we can get him on: campaign finance violation.
I swear, if they could do it showing double parking, they would.
Seriously.
This is the utmost of serious. This is the utmost.
No one is above the law, they would say.
Yeah, and it's absolutely just, it's But what it's going to do is it's going to, like, I'm a DeSantis guy, but if this collusion is all in at every level, both in there and in Florida and then wherever they're going after Trump based on this BS, and they're all in, it almost decrees that Trump has to be the nominee.
Oh yeah, they're going to make him the nominee, which of course is part of the point here.
Right, but if it's all that we're going to use I don't know if it is the point that if they want him to be the nominee, but if everybody, I think that people are more hurt than anything, and he needs to be hurt too.
Yeah, but they also, like, Nate Silver did kind of an unscientific poll on his Twitter where he said, like, if you're a Democrat, you know, who would you prefer to be the Republican nominee, Donald Trump or someone else? And Donald Trump won between the two choices. I think the left thinks they have a better chance of winning, especially if their nominee is Biden in 2024, if Trump is the Republican nominee. Just like they did in 2016. Just like the media colluded and gave him, the Washington Post and MSNBC and everybody else gave him a tongue bath the entire primary. And the Hillary Clinton campaign was high-fiving and thinking they had it in the bag. And they were all so excited and trying to get him to be the nominee. And the Republican consultants and everybody else were all panicking because he was going to be the nominee. And they freaking memed him right into the presidency. They're going to do it again. And I mean, I don't know if Trump will beat Biden in 2024, but who
knows?
But I think that they would like him to be the nominee.
All right, babe. I think we got to check out. Go to the Patreon only segment.
Only show.
Are you ready? Say I was born ready.
I was born ready.
Hold on, Alice. Here we go.
So I stopped the recording. Because normally when you say, are you ready, you mean for me to start the next show. So that's okay. If you want to watch the Patreon show, it's at patreon.com/burnbarrel. Of course, the show is always free at burnbarrelpodcast.com. Email us burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com.
C'est la vie.